Hey guys, welcome to another Foresight TV. I started to say Foresight Friday, and that wouldn't make any sense at all. I know that you all have people who come to look at your communities, and they are struggling to pay their rent. And there, for many of them, there is such a great solution out there that is so underutilized. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Suzette Graham is a new Foresight partner. She's also got an amazing founder story. Those are kind of my very favorites. So Suzette, I am so glad to have you here. Before I do that, let's start with this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Hey, welcome, Suzette. I am so delighted. I've been looking forward to doing this show for so long. Let's start by just having you talk about who you are and what your company does very briefly. And then I want you to sort of tell me your story and how you got to be there. And then we'll circle back and talk more about what you do.
Perfect. I'm Suzette Graham, CEO and founder of Patriot Angels. And we assist veterans and widows in getting a VA pension known as aid in attendance. And that pension is to help them pay for their care while living in a senior living community or in home care.
Cool. And you told me that something like 50% of all residents are potentially eligible for this?
30 to 50% of all people in senior housing or looking to move into senior housing are veterans or widows of veterans, depending on where you are in the country. And just to give you a number, there's an estimated about 15 million veterans that are potentially eligible for the aid and attendance benefit. And yet less than 2% are receiving it.
So actually, I'm doing this all backwards, but now you got me. Now you got me intrigued, and that's fairly typical for me. Anyway, so one more question about that. So, if somebody's already moved in, are they still eligible for that?
Yep. They actually have to be responsible for the debt before we can send an application to the VA. So we have to know that they are living in or moving into the community prior to the application being sent. Now we can start up front gathering documentation, but nothing can go to the VA until in fact they are paying for senior care.
So I find myself thinking that you could like bring Christmas to maybe dozens of your residents in any given community, Christmas in, I don't know, however long it takes to get approved. But imagine what it would be like if you just went through and looked at all your residents and figured out who were widows or veterans and said, hey, we've got this thing that will generate you thousands of dollars a month that you're fully entitled to. I would think that for many cases, the biggest problem would be that people would say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. That it sounds like a scam, when it's not. It's part of the government benefits of being a veteran. So let's go to your story. I want to know how you became the CEO, how you founded Patriot Angels.
Perfect. So I've always done advocate work. Growing up, my mother had the first feeding program in Alaska. And so we would go out and we would feed the people less fortunate in our little town up there. We'd go gather food from the grocery stores and twice a week take it. So I was raised to do those things. I then went into helping. I became a foster parent. I became the head of the foster parent organization. Then I became a self-ordained lobbyist to get children out of foster care and into permanent homes. And once I got the laws changed to get kids out of the system, I moved to Tennessee and started helping homeowners in foreclosure. It just seems like that's kind of been my life's work. And I started helping homeowners. But then when the market went soft, right, I had to get a job. And so I went to work for a company to help veterans or widows, or so I thought, right? My job was to tell them about the benefit and then send them to an attorney in another state. Well, it wasn't long that I found out that they were actually just trying to find out how much money the client had so they could sell them an annuity. And though not illegal, it was actually depriving the client of their finances. So when they needed their money back, they couldn't get it. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to be a part of that. And so I went up to, it just so happens that the COO of Brookdale had stopped by our office to ask about how we participated in the VA program. And he left his card. And so I called him and I said, can I have a meeting? And he said, sure. And I went up and met and I said, this is what's taking place. People are going into your communities and they're doing these seminars. And yet the end goal is to find out how much money they have and not to get them their benefits. And he said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, I'm looking for a job. And he said, come back tomorrow. And I went back the next day and I met with John Rios, who was the president of Brookdale at the time, Greg Richards, COO, and then Ron Ayler. And they said, Suzette, if you will start a company, we'll refer people to you. And so I went home and I didn't go there looking to start a company. I went there looking for a job. And I went home and I set up a desk in the corner of my bonus room. And I had 5 children. I had 4 living at home and 1 out married. And I set up a desk in the bonus room and I used a Magic Jack, the old Magic Jack, compliments of Ben at Mom's house. I used an old Magic Jack and I plugged that into my computer with my phone and away I went. I just started calling communities going, hey, do you know that there's a service out here that we don't sell annuities? We don't try to manage your finances. We strictly help you get benefits. That's our whole goal. And man, my phone started ringing off the hook and I needed help. And so my daughter was in the next room, one of them, and I said, I need you to come in here. And I set her up a desk and I said, I need you to answer the phone and just start taking down this information. Well, in the beginning, we were using notepads, right? Mrs. Smith at the top and all the stuff. And then pretty soon that became, you can't do that very long. So I got a PDF. I thought, man, I have made it. I have a PDF. And all these icons saved on my screen, Mrs. Smith, Mr. Carter, Mrs. Williamson. And then I had my whole screen full of icons. So I called my son and I said, I need like a CRM or I need an Excel spreadsheet, some way to keep track of all this. And so he set up a desk in the next corner. And we, of course, today have Salesforce and our own CRM system that we've created that makes the applications for us. And then I needed more help. So I hired my next daughter. And so I tell people we had a desk in each corner and I ran out of corners before I ran out of children. And so when we needed more help, we moved out and we found our first location and started from there. But it wasn't easy. In the beginning, of course, like any new startup business, I had to figure out how to fund it. And having had quit my other job, trying to figure out how this was going to work, my house went into foreclosure. My car was repossessed. My electric was shut off. And we didn't think that we were going to survive this. And a friend of mine came by and said, what do you need? And pulled out his checkbook. And so I borrowed $12,000. I got my house caught up. I didn't get a car right away, but got my house caught up, got my electric turned back on. And we just started rolling from there. And Steve, it has been the biggest blessing. We're 10 years old. We just hit 10 years last October, and we are officially 130 employees and just passed 15,000 approvals on VA benefits. And if you relate that to how much money that is for our partners, that's huge. That's a lot of money monthly for our partners that goes into allowing these veterans and widows to be able to get the care they need, the care they deserve of a pension that they've earned. But it's difficult to get. It's labor intensive. And so we just keep growing and keep, taking on new clients. And it's been an adventure.
It is such a great story. I not in this iteration. I've been very, very blessed in my foresight world that we've always been very, very financially healthy. But I can remember when I was in my 20s, I had this sinking experience where I walked out to my driveway, get into my car to take my little kids to school, and there were no car. There were two cars that both had mortgages that had debt on them, and they were both gone. And you feel stupid and embarrassed, and you're taking care of your family. And so I have such great admiration, and I love the story about somebody coming along at just the right time. I mean, when I look at my story with foresight, it was a series of just coincidences like that I really learned I could write, that I stole this idea for how the platform works from somebody else that I crossed paths with at a conference, and they're just fantastic stories. I guess I actually ought to tell my story sometime, and I've never really done that. I don't think so.
Yes, you should.
So about how many of these applications do you do a year?
Well, last year we did about 7,600. This year we are projected about over close to 10,000. We did 11.11% of all the approvals across the country last year. And that includes, of course, competitors as well as, the VFW, the American Legion, the VA, they all do them as well. And we did 11.11% of all the approvals. So we know how to do it. It's definitely labor intensive. There's a lot of paperwork to it, a lot of documents the clients have to get for us. But we know how to do the application. We know what the VA is looking for on each client. We know their situation. Some are 50 pages, some are 150 pages when we send them to the VA. And we send them through our own portal that goes straight to the VA. We have some really good relationships there where the VA actually reaches out to us and gives us phone numbers to call, people to talk to. They tell us about changes in forms. So, it's been a growing experience, absolutely, but it's been a great one.
So what is sort of the average monthly benefit that people receive?
So it just went up 8.7% for the new year because it went up with inflation. I mean, with Social Security, every time Social Security goes up, this goes up the same amount. And so for a widow right now, it just went up to $1,432 a month. But for a veteran, it's $2,229 a month. And for a married veteran, it's $2,642 a month. And tell me, Steve, that doesn't go a long way in making a decision if they can afford senior housing or not, or being able to pay their rent at a community.
Oh man, I think it is huge. Now, are there income limits on this?
So that's kind of a fallacy, because if you look at the VA website, it says if you make more than $14,000 or $17,000 in a year, you don't qualify. And that's not exactly the truth. It's if you have that much residual income after medical expenses, then you don't qualify. So if you're bringing in $3,000 a month, but you're spending $3,500 a month on your care, the VA sees that as a deficit and you have zero income for the purposes of the benefit.
And does senior living count as that care?
Say that, senior living, yes. That's the thing, is it's easier in a community than in-home care. So you can get it for in-home care too, but they still have to pay for their own groceries, their own gas, their own taxes, house payments, whatever. If they're in a community, the community is all inclusive, right? So they get their meals, they get their electric, they get their housing, and that's all included as a medical expense with the VA if you're doing the paperwork correctly.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk. I want to do a little bit more mechanics. So it sounds like when you describe a 50-page or 150-page application, it kind of makes my head want to explode, right? So, but maybe as a comparison, because most people have done it, it's a bit like doing a home mortgage, and which is, it's probably the biggest reason I never want to sell my house and move someplace else.
Right.
I don't want to go through that process again.
Taxes.
Yeah. So it's sort of that kind of a process, right? Just lots of form, lots of things,
Right.
but you tell people what they need, they give it to you, and you take care of filling in the forms.
Yeah, we make the application, make sure it's correct, make sure that the numbers line up, make sure they're spending what they should be, make sure they're getting the care they need to be getting, all the things that the VA requires. We make sure that, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and we want to make sure that our clients get approved. There's another process out there called the appeal process. And if a client gets denied, somebody that's VA accredited can apply to the Board of Appeals saying, hey, we don't agree with your decision, so we want to appeal this. Well, an appeal is actually 2 to 4 years. And the client, in many cases, as you know, in senior living, pass away during that process. The estate then gets the funds if, in fact, they get approved, and whoever's filing the appeal gets 20% of the back pay. Well, we don't do that. We feel like these clients need their money, right? That's why they're applying. They need it to be able to get care. And so we do notices of disagreement, or we ask for higher level reviews. If the VA comes back and asks for additional information because the client forgot to tell us about 3 cents, Steve, on a bank statement of interest, then we're the ones that respond. We don't have them respond. We do it all for them. We stay with the client. We call the VA every 30 days to make sure that their case is moving forward. And so it's the value, right? It's getting it all done and how to get them move forward.
So you asked a great question. How do I sign my dad up? We're going to give you some information so you can get in touch with Suzette and her organization here in just a few minutes. In fact, actually, why don't Jada, who's producing in the background, thank you, Jada, for doing this. If you could pop that up, contact information up now so that we can respond to that, that would be terrific. I love this. How long does it take to get it done?
So it depends on how long it takes the family to get us the information we need. Because again, everybody, you need to know we can't get some of these forms. We can't get your bank statements, and you wouldn't want us to, right? We can't get your discharge papers for you. We can't get your Social Security statement. Those are things that you have to get for us. Marriage information, things like that. What we do is make the application. We know all the additional forms that have to be there. We know how the forms have to be written. We know what the doctor's form has to say, et cetera. So we do all that for you. And then, so how long does it take you to get it to us? Then it takes about 48, 72 hours for us to make the application. We submit it through our portal to the VA. And right now our average time of approval is 97 days. And we track that daily on kind of how long is it taking. So it's generally 97 days, which means the client has to be able to pay for their care in the community or in home care until they're approved. So a family member or, themselves, we take a look at their finances at that point. Can they afford that? What do they need to help with? But they do have to pay until they get approved. But the good thing is, as soon as they become a client, first thing that we do is send a form to the VA, letting the VA know, hey, we're going to be applying for benefits for Mrs. Smith. And so they give her a locked-in start date. So for instance, if they became a client today, they would get a February 1st start date. It's always the first day of the next month. So now we want to gather all the documents. We want to get everything submitted. We send it to the VA. The VA does their due diligence to make sure that everything's correct and that we've sent in all the information. They always cross-reference with the IRS and Social Security to make sure everything's right. And then they will approve. And when they do, it's retroactive back to that February 1st start date. So then the client is not missing out on money. So if I know somebody's moving into senior housing February 1st, I want to make sure I get them a February 1st start date. They're going to private pay for those 2, 3, 4 months, but then they're going to get retroactive back to that start date.
So if somebody has if somebody's already living in a community, can you backdate, or is it just whenever you start?
Only a veteran. So a widow cannot get back.
But if it's a veteran, I mean, let's say that there's an executive director or somebody even higher watching this, right, and says, man, I know Mr. Jones down the street was a veteran and he's really struggling to pay his bills. He's been here for 3 years, and because of inflation, our rates have gone up. So is it going to be just whenever it starts? Or if they've been here a year, can they go back a year?
You can go back 12 months after an application's been approved on a veteran only, not a widow. Then the veteran, if they qualified, meaning if they were spending out equal to or more than their income on their care, if they were under there is a benchmark of assets. Right now it's $150,000 and some cents that they can have in liquid assets. They can also have a home on less than 2 acres. Okay. As long as the doctor wanted them in the community as a protective environment, or they're getting 2 ADLs, right? As long as all those things are true, then you can go back 12 months and get up to 12 months back pay for a veteran.
And independent living as well as assisted?
Independent living, there are some additional rules for independent living, and that is that there has to be 24-hour staffing at an independent living community, or the client must be getting 2 of the 6 ADLs the VA allows by a third party. So that third party can be the spouse, that third party can be a daughter, that third party can be, a health aid group that comes in and does it. Anybody can do the third party, but they have to be getting third party care in order to be able to get it in independent living.
To me, this is just mind blowing that you aren't doing, 30,000 applications a year instead of 12 or 15,000. Let's talk about money. How much does it cost to get this done?
So thank you for asking that, because I really want people to know this. We charge for a long-term care assessment. That's the law. You can't charge somebody to do the application. You can't charge to prepare, prosecute, or present a claim. So somebody's charging you to look over your claim, that's against the law, okay? But we do a long-term care assessment. We first of all, we'll do a pre-filing screening to see, are you a good candidate or not? If you're not, we'll tell you right then. You divorced the veteran, so, benefits do not move forward with you, or you don't have the right service times for this benefit, but there may be others you're eligible for. We then do a long-term care assessment, and that is a fee of $12.95. And that is what happens there is you have an hour with our legal team, and then you got 16-page report that comes back to you on different things that you're eligible for, other than aid and attendance. There may be the healthcare, VA healthcare system. There may be service connected, maybe Champ VA, maybe TRICARE for Life. Maybe, we give you hotlines for Alzheimer's and the VA emergency hotlines, and just a lot of information, packet of information that comes from us. That's what you pay for. Then if you want us to file the application on aid and attendance, and not everybody does, then we will file the application on their behalf at no additional fee. And that's where we step in and do that on their behalf.
That is really, really cool. Can you talk about success rates once you submit?
Well, now obviously we have death, and if death occurs before the application is submitted, the VA won't do anything. If death occurs after the application has been submitted, then what we can do, if the family pays for the burial and last illness, we can get up to what they had coming to them, back to the family, okay? But if, in fact, we have all the information, we know the information is correct, we have an almost perfect success rate, Steve. As a matter of fact, it was kind of funny, last year when the VA was rolling out their numbers, we had more approvals than we sent applications. Because some were rolling from the year before, obviously. But I said, look at us, we're that good. So as long as the client is, and that's what we tell them, as long as you're telling us the truth, we know what we're doing here, right? But we have had clients try to keep, mom had a $150,000 IRA in one. Well, the first thing the VA does is they check with the IRS. And the IRS goes, wait a minute, you didn't tell us about this, $150,000 IRA. So then when we ask the family, they're like, well, we kind of wanted to keep that for mom. That doesn't work. We also had one family that called us that found 100 Series E bonds in mom's top drawer. you imagine the value of that? And of course, those are all registered, right? IRS knew right about those. So as long as we know everything, we know how to get you approved.
That is really, really, really cool. This is something that everybody ought to be tapping into, making available. So let's talk a little bit about how. So I'm sitting here, and actually we've seen some comments come over saying, "Oh man, I got to learn more about this. I got to do this. I got to do this for my dad." Was one of the comments. Let's talk about the process of connecting and working with you. And I think there are really two questions. One is, if I'm just an individual and it's either for me or a loved one, what do I do? And more likely it's going to be somebody who's part of a senior living organization. What do I do?
So any of those can call our front line. We have a great frontline team, and 844-757-3047. They can call and tell the situation, and they will be transferred to where they need to go. Okay. If it's somebody looking to start the process with their mom or dad, they will be sent over to our intake team that will start the process immediately for them. If it's a senior living community, they'll be sent to my community relations team, and we will send out brochures. We will do rollouts for you. We will do seminars, webinars, whatever you need from us to make you successful. And here's, Steve, you brought this up earlier. A lot of people in senior living aren't getting this, right? They moved in, they had more money than was allowed. They've been turned down maybe even before. Always recheck with them, because they're spending down, right? And they're not going to tell you until they're 30 days out. Now they have to move out because they're out of money, right? Nobody can do anything in 30 days. If anybody tells you you can get approved in 30 days, unless the application's already in, and that adjudicator at the VA is Johnny on the spot, that's the only way you're getting something in 30 days. Otherwise, it takes about at least 90 days, right? So be checking with your people and make sure that they, if you're a veteran or widow, have you heard of this? If not, call, just check. It's a free phone call, call us, see if you qualify, see if there's something that's out there that you could be getting. Agent Orange is a big one right now. Then the PACT Act with the burn pits is a big one. For the Gulf War, there's a whole lot out there that you could be eligible for.
So I want to back you up to something. You said something kind of in passing that I want to come back to. One of the things that communities are often looking for is sort of creating physical lead magnets. So if you can hold an event to teach people something, is that something you can provide resources so that they could invite people in to learn about veterans benefits?
Yeah, you know what? During COVID, it really exploded because we do lots of virtual seminars now, and we're absolutely able to do that. And what's nice is it's on their time frame. We can one-on-one with a client with them. We have communities that call us while there's a lead there, and they ask us the preliminary questions to see if they might be eligible. Obviously, we can never guarantee, and we never would, that somebody's eligible, because we don't know what the VA is going to find whenever they look in the IRS, or, did the client foreclose on a VA loan before? Then the VA wants to get paid back. So there are things like that they look for. But as long as we have that information, we're able to say, yeah, Ms. Smith, you look like a great candidate for this, or, or no, you don't,
That is so good. So if we actually were to say, I know that you've got some communities that are completely dialed in on this, right? Who they're checking with every person and everybody who's eligible. In those buildings, what percentage of people do you have, just off the top of your head, of what percentage have been helped with this?
Well, I know, Steve, on a national average, less than 2% are getting this benefit. And so if you got 30 to 50% of your clients in your community are veterans or widows, imagine how many are not getting it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it's mind blowing, right? Because that might be, $20, $30, $50, $60,000 worth of additional benefit that you could be bringing into your residents, which, primarily benefits them, but it just makes their life easier. And how in love with you as an operator are they going to be if you do that for them? So
absolutely.
So, Suzette, this has been fantastic. Somebody posted up that this is a must watch. It absolutely is a must watch. I love your passion. I love how you figured out how to make this very complex system work for residents, work for communities. We'll pop up again and we'll put in the show notes. Contact. I'm trying to get better at this, Jada, but I want to say thanks to Jada Clint on my team for producing in the background. She does the hard work. I get to do the fun work, and it couldn't happen without her. She's waving at me. You can't see that. It's just a good thing. So, Suzette, this is really, really good. And with that, we are going to sign off here in just a moment.
Thank you.